Greetings, duelists, and welcome to another deck report. This is Season 4, Week 11, and this is another Maliss deck profile. However, I did make a couple changes compared to last list. If you haven't seen the last Welcome to the Underground video, I do recommend you watch it because it does serve as a bit of a preface of the choices that I made for the deck. Right now, we're at the experimental phase of the format until Maze of the Master and until our next Forbidden Limited list or YCS Las Vegas, which is probably going to be before then. We're pretty much in a stagnant format where we already know what decks are defined, and we're just looking and researching and experimenting on avenues and criterias and strategies just to adapt to the current format. The last update that we had was with the release of the Blue Eyes structure deck that came out last week, and that deck has been performing well. So at the moment, Ryziel, Maliss, and Blue Eyes are kind of like the three decks that you should be looking out for. That's not to say other rogue decks like Fire Kings and Crystron, or some other examples like White Forest should not be ignored, but more so look at the first three decks as a criteria for your deck building, as well as potential other decks that could catch you by surprise. Without further ado, let's begin. So, 3 Dormouse, 3 Rabbit, 2 Cats. We're still on the 10 Dangers, but we added a Bigfoot now. Bigfoot is now a new addition to the main deck. With another new addition is Dotscaper. We're still on 9 Bestials. No changes there. I think that's 29 monsters. So the 3 Underground. We bumped Enemy Controller and Talents to 2 now, to 2 copies each. Ghost Sark, Branded Regained. And then you have the 3 Malice Traps. That puts us at 41 cards in the main deck. I'll start with the side deck before the extra deck. You'll see in a moment why. 3 Shifter, 3 Impulse. I am playing Metaltronus now, and I will explain this. 2 Storms, Duster, Thrust, Talents, and Call by the Grave. And now for the extra deck. Linger Evil, Link Decoded, Lizard Dose, IPSP, Dark, the 2 Nightmares, the 3 Queens, Griffin, Access Code, Abawaku, and a new addition to the extra deck, which is one of the main reasons for Metaltronus, Mech Knight Crusadia Avery Max. Alright, explanations. Let's start with Abramax and let's start with Metaltronus. If you've seen my past videos, me talking about Metaltronus, I brought up that I wasn't a fan of the card because I wasn't a fan of just trying to adjust my main deck or extra deck specifically to this card. However, in a format like this one, right now, this is the perfect time to start looking into everything you can play in your deck that does not conflict whatsoever and can also work with Metaltronus. And Midnight Crusadia Abramax came up for me specifically not because it's just a Metaltronus target that can target Ryziel Detonator because it has 3000 attack and it's a light attribute monster, but it also can target Blue Eyes Red Dragon, so it also can be summoned under that condition. But adding to that, if you make this monster, especially with IP, Ryziel has almost no outs to this card. It's very similar to the Chaos Angel situation with the Mitsurugi version, where if you summon this card, especially against the Board Breaker version of Ryziel, which is actually very popular right now, there are not that many cards that can out this card. And it's really good in the sense that not only is this card really hard to out, but this card can also secure game shots as well, because it's really hard to run over this monster as well. Like when this card battles an opponent's monster, this card gains attack. Like it cannot be targeted when it was sling summoned. You are forced to attack this card, so that's another really cool avenue behind this. Like, not only is this just a wall that your opponent can attack over, but if you have other monsters that your opponent wants to like run over, like for example SP Little Knight, well, they can't do that. They have to attack the Abramax instead of the SP Little Knight. So that's another big advantage in our favor. And one of the main reasons I kind of wanted to experiment this with Metaltronus, during the past week, I've only drew Metaltronus once, but it did win me the game when I activated it. So far, I gotta say, it's actually been working. Funnily enough, the one match that I did win was against Ryziel, and it was specifically me summoning Abramax. So that's what you know about Abramax now when it comes to this card. In this version of Maliss, this card is specifically better than in other versions, because against the Mitsurugi deck, you can target one of their, you can target the Ameno Murakumo and just summon Danger Tsushinoko, because it is a Dark Reptile. If you are not playing Dangers in your deck, the Mitsurugi end board is just really hard to contest with this card. But since you are playing a card that is naturally good against the Mitsurugi deck, then you have another target for Metaltronus as opposed to other Maliss versions. Another thing that came up for me when I was testing with Metaltronus was against Blue Eyes. You would specifically target the Blue Eyes Spirit Dragon, and you will summon Bestial Druid's Worm. You can summon any Bestial, but Druid's Worm is the most useful one because it's the one that can utilize its effect even when negated by Metaltronus. So that also comes up. Another cool thing about Metaltronus, if you didn't like, if you already saw it from my video, but against Crystron, because that deck is actually being popular in my locals now. Lizard Dose is a water 800, so it works against the Crystron Threstalus, which is one of the most annoying cards in the deck. But yeah, I guess that's it for Metaltronus. Overall, I'm not disappointed with my first time testing the card, actually using it in a competitive environment. The card, I won't say overperformed, but I can get behind the utility behind it and the usefulness behind it, like in the current format. Besides that, I don't think there's anything else to talk about when it comes to the side deck. Everything else is pretty much like from what you saw last time. Changes to the main deck. Let's start with Dotscaper. So, since Dominus Impulse is not in my main deck, I figured Dotscaper is an okay extender that you can use in this deck. What makes Dotscaper good in this version, as opposed to other Maliss versions, is that it could synergize with the Dangers, because it is a fodder for the Dangers if you do get sniped with it from hand. So just knowing that the Dangers can all hit this card is very beneficial. But the other thing about Dotscaper that I really like is that as of late, a lot of Maliss players had no value behind summoning Red Ramson if you're not playing Dotscaper. However, in this version, since I'm not playing hand traps, I'm mainly playing board breakers. Bridging into Red Ramson and then Red Ramson extending with Dotscaper just gives you a really good engine push against your opponent's M boards a lot better. And that does actually come up. When it comes to the dangers, something really cool is that they themselves distract your opponent and they try to make sure your opponent wastes all the resources before you go to your main Maliss place. And if you hit Dotscaper alongside your dangers, something really cool about this is Dotscaper can make Lingeribo, which means you can shut down your opponent's traps while you're trying to contest against their board, or you can turn that Lingeribo into SP Little Knight alongside one of your dangers, and you're just making an easy summon SP Little Knight with minimal resources. So that's another really cool thing to keep in mind. So far, I am not disappointed in this approach, and funnily enough, it did win me one game against Ryziel on game 1, me having this in the main deck. My Ryziel opponent tried to hand trap me like 3 times, and the Ramson summoning this was an engine push that he was not expecting, because I did went through all Maliss names, which got properly interacted with his interactions. So you see here how I have all these dangers, but I now added Bigfoot into the mix. So in the last deck report, I was siding the Bigfoot just as a side deck card, because the card is way more useful going second than going first. However, on game 1s, I found the value behind this card just because of its attack points. I'll give you a perfect example. Let's say you're facing against Ryziel, and your Ryziel opponent makes the Star Liege Photon Dragon dual drive lock that protects all their Ryziel monsters from being targeted. Well, if you summon Danger Bigfoot, you can run over the Star Liege, because the Star Liege will have 2700 defense, while the Bigfoot will have 2800 attack. And that is enough for you to get rid of an important end board piece of your opponent and start using the rest of your resources to just pick apart your opponent's board properly. That did come up. It did come up one game. So my theory on this was correct. Also, this is not a bad card to have as part of your end board in your hand, because it's also a really good discard fodder for a Bawaku. And against a Ryziel opponent that I had, my opponent summoned the Ice Ryziel, and they summoned the other Ryziel, and I went a Bow Pitch Bigfoot to pop their 2 Ryziels. And you may think popping 2 Ryziels is not a really big deal, since it was just their normal summon and they have in-hand pushes, but you have to think about it this way. An Abawaku that popped 2 cards can then transition into a White Binder that banishes their entire graveyard, and unless they haven't summoned X Ryziel yet, or they're trying to summon Ice Ryziel before Sword Ryziel, you can get rid of everything that makes them be able to summon Sword Ryziel and Node Ryziel, which does come up if you think about it thoroughly. It just makes their pushes against your board a lot more awkward, and it's not to anybody's surprise that Maliss and boards are just very powerful, but just having the interaction of Bigfoot and Abao is one that your opponent will probably not be expecting. This combination is also really good against Blue Eyes. because of their multiple continuous spelling traps. So this pretty much just becomes like a detonator against that deck, if you truly think about it. But yeah, that's it for Bigfoot. Another thing that you noticed, and I already brought it up, I bumped Talents and Controller to 2. These keep going back and forth between 2 and 1 copies, but now for the first time, I am playing a 41 card list with these 4 cards in it. And how did that happen? I cut Allure of Darkness. Cutting Allure of Darkness was not a hard decision for me, because with all these dangers, you're drawing into your deck like very consistently. Adding with Branded Regained as well, you have just a lot of different tutor cards that just makes you move your deck very thoroughly. Don't forget the draws from Chessy Cat as well. You just draw too many cards already, and Allure of Darkness is just one of those cards that is kind of win more in this specific version. So I figured I would just trade the Allure of Darkness for just more non-engine cards that I can use to push against my opponent's boards. And overall, I'm not disappointed in this decision. With the 9 Bestials and these cards right here, I feel like I have enough ways to just play through what my opponent has. The Mitsurugi matchup is still really hard, but again, that's where the proper sighting comes in. And yeah, that's it from the main deck. Like, outside of that, I think everything else is pretty much standard from the last list. Yeah, I hope you guys found this informative to your liking and understanding. I will make deck reports involving other decks very, very soon, so stay tuned for those. But until next time, keep practicing and keep dueling.